Hey.
Hello, amazing ladies and gentlemen and winners across the world. Welcome to our Boss Lady Summit for June. Can you please give the amazing panelists a round of applause? And we are here streaming to you worldwide. Now, we've got amazing Master Coach Sonia. We love Master Coach Sonia. And Master Coach Sonia's in a busy area, so we'll keep her on mute for now. We've got amazing Karen Clark. Love Karen Clark. We've got none other Simone Lord. We love you, Simone Lord. And we have Sarah Polyakov. So I just want to say a big welcome. Today's topic is resilience, but more importantly, vulnerability. So we're talking about vulnerability is the key topic that we're going to unpack with these amazing ladies. However, resilience, I think, will come into it as well. So we're here to talk about vulnerability. And I've got to say, vulnerability and showing it can be a real strength. Now, big shout out to Lassie for creating this concept. I'm honored to be a wonderful, handsome, and slim old Arab bald guy working with such incredible ladies. Just to say a big welcome. Now, if you are watching wherever you're from, be it you're watching from LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, wherever, please smash that like, share, and comment, and we'll get into it. So without further ado, what we're going to do is we're just going to open it up and get started. And we've got John Towson already tuned in. Good seeing you, John. Now, to kick this one off, I want to bounce over to the legendary Simone Lord. Simone Lord is powerful. She's speaking at an event in Sydney next week. And Simone Lord, so good having you with us. How you doing, Simone?
Good morning. I'm pumped. It's Sunday. It's always nice to be here on a weekend and have a fun day ahead, which is quite fun. I've got some downtime without any kids, which doesn't happen often for me. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. We just had Holly tune in. Big wave to Holly. We love you, Holly.
Hi.
That's very good. Now, Simone, I want to ask you the first question just to open up. Then we're going to bounce over to Sarah Polyakov. Simone, what does vulnerability mean to you, and tell us about it?
I think it's absolutely essential to be vulnerable throughout your life and in different spaces, whether it's personally or professionally. Vulnerability is the key to finding a level within yourself to work through your next level, and also for people who you're working with, whether that's creating a relationship of a friendship, showing vulnerability to your family and friends, or whether that's personally from professionally as well. And when you show a level of vulnerability, how you're working with your peers, with your team, with your mentors and everything like that. I think it's absolutely essential.
Oh, absolutely brilliant. And we've got Tara Hannon from Sydney. Good seeing you, Tara, on LinkedIn. We've got Elizabeth Herr from Auckland. And we've got Lorna Hollinger over on Facebook. And we've got Cami from London. So we are truly international. Now, Simone, that brings me to the next big question. And I want to ask this of everyone too. Does society frown on vulnerability?
I don't think it's frowned upon as such. I think it's has a stereotype of being a weakness. And if you're showing vulnerability, then people feel like it's a trait that is not something to be expressed, in my opinion, of course. And I think it's really important for people to recognize that it's actually a strength. It's not easy to be vulnerable. It's not easy to share some of those details of your lessons and learning, but by doing so, it excels you into growth. So, yeah.
Oh, well said. That's why your last name's Lord, with a great response like that. Can we give it up for Simone? There you go. And hello to Dee Tozer from Melbourne. We've got Chimsy. We've got a great crew here. We're going to bounce over to our legendary friend, Sarah Polyakov. Sarah, so honored to have you with us. And how are you, and what are some of your thoughts and reactions so far?
I absolutely love what Simone had to say. And can you guys hear me okay? Okay, perfect. I believe that vulnerability is actually a facet of courage, internal courage. A person has to be very courageous to open their heart because they don't know where that will lead. And you also asked about how society looks at vulnerability. Well, the thing that I've noticed in the United States is sometimes people who are witnessing others who are being vulnerable feel almost uncomfortable it's an awkward situation for them to witness somebody who's in a vulnerable moment, or they may not know what to say. And so that's my statement on vulnerability and how society sees it in a nutshell.
Now, simple question. I know this is a women's empowerment summit, but I think I just have to bring up the obvious question. Is there like a gender stereotype you think, Sarah, where it's okay for women to be vulnerable, but men can't? Do you think something like that exists? What are your thoughts on that one, Sarah?
Okay, so in terms of gender stereotypes, I'm speaking for Americans here. I think it is very much cultural, even within the US. I've noticed that in some cultures, such as the corporate culture, both men and women need to be strong. There's not a real love for vulnerability when you're in a corporate role, when you're a VP, for example. And it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman in this case. You have to be strong, you have to put on that strong face. And so I would say that it really has to do with context.
Well said. Sarah, can we give Sarah a applause? Sarah, we love you, Sarah Polyakov, and a great one. Now, our legendary friend Holly Smith has to go earlier today, so we're going to spend a bit of extra time with Holly now before she has to run. Then we're going to bounce over to Karen and Master Coach Sonia. So, Holly, it was so good seeing you yesterday when I flew up to Brisbane, and great seeing you again today.
Yeah, likewise. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Loud and clear. And where are you in the beautiful Brisbane outdoors?
I'm on like some farm. It's like there's heaps of like animals, hence why I had to move before. There's like dogs all over me. Anyway, so I'm spending time with family at the Sunshine Coast, so that's why I've got to go soon. But anyway, I love this topic. It sounds what everyone's said so far, I can totally agree with.
And I was going to ask you, Holly. I mean, you're an amazing lady. You're such a young high achiever. You've achieved more 20 years younger than me than I did a year ago. You've done an amazing job. And Holly, what are some of your deep thoughts and reactions to what you've heard so far?
I just love the fact that I think vulnerability does actually go hand in hand with success, and we don't really think about that because you do have to be vulnerable in many situations, even when we don't want to be. I think as well, like Sarah was saying, like in the corporate world or with people feel like they have to be stronger or put on a mask even behind social media. And I think we forget about that vulnerable aspect, which is what allows us to be authentic and allows people to really see what I guess our real agendas are. And I think, as I was saying, it's like linked to success. So you do have to be vulnerable. You do have to put yourself out there. You do have to like take that layer off that you may not want to see of you, to be able to allow them to see your real authentic side and what you do have to offer. And I really do believe it's not until, from my own experience as well, until you are vulnerable and you're willing to, because with vulnerability comes confidence, right? You actually have to be confident enough to be vulnerable because it's hard. Like we're going to get taken advantage of and all these other thoughts come into our head, right? So I think if we can step into a situation knowing it's in line with our purpose, our goals and what we actually want, and slightly take that mask off and allow ourselves to be, I guess, open and honest and our authentic selves in every situation, that will always lead to something along the path of your purpose or what you're really supposed to be doing. That's just what I found as well.
Oh, beautiful. And just a quick one, got some great reactions. Awesome, Yolan Garrick, an old friend of mine. Good seeing you, Yolan. She's like you, Holly, or Simone. She could punch through a brick wall as well. Amazing, Yolan. Vulnerability opens you up to growth. It is a strength. Exactly what everyone's been saying. Yolan's loving it. Good seeing you, Yolan. And Lorna loves the male and female question. Elizabeth Herr also makes a good point. I think vulnerability is not the same as oversharing. You still have to have healthy boundaries and be vulnerable with people who are trustworthy. Now, I know you have to go again, Holly, so I just want to put that one to you as well before you run. Now, lately, if you don't mind me saying this, you have been really vulnerable lately. You've really expressed your vulnerability all over the internet. I suppose 2 questions from that. I guess, were you afraid of doing that? And what made you start expressing your vulnerability, which I think's been awesome? What's been happening to you there, Holly?
great question, and really makes me go back to think, with my new book coming out, 30 Days to Happiness, right? It's like my story of how to become happier, like through the dark times. So I think of sharing that with the world and with people I already know, and like my clients. And I think all my clients and the people I think on LinkedIn, like they're very supportive, and they're all about, past stories and, where you've been and how you can now achieve more from the past stories and whatnot. But I think with my book coming out and with my new programs and with, I guess, expressing my authentic self on social media, I have been so much more vulnerable, because I got to a point where I'm like, no one can actually learn from you and your past mistakes if you don't share it, number one. And number two, most of the people are dealing with exactly the same issue as you. So how can you, and if your goal in life is to help people, how can you help anyone if you're not going to be authentic? So I decided probably about like 12 months ago, and it took me a long time to actually get the confidence to be vulnerable, share my story, especially with people that I knew. That was bigger, because I don't care about the people I don't know. I don't really care because I don't know them, right? But I care about the people that are close to me, obviously what they think. As a woman, we kind of have those, I guess, the confidence side of things. But now I've just decided you just make a decision, right? And yes, there's mindset work that goes into it, but you just make a decision to share your story. That's it. And be vulnerable, because it's not about you. It's about helping other people who are maybe in exactly the same situation as you were once in. And I think that's probably the number one thing when it comes to, I guess, being vulnerable, is sharing your story.
Oh my God, brilliant. Holly, we absolutely love you. I know you have to probably go and then go soon. Is there anything else you want to say before I bounce off to Karen, in light that you might have to run and gun soon?
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I know I've been a little bit hit and miss with these sessions, so appreciate you having me back. And I hope you all have such a fabulous day. You've got some really powerhouse women on here. I love you all. And just the world is such a better place with you guys in it. So I love you all, and I hope you have a really great day.
Oh, we love Holly. Big wave to Holly. Big round of applause to Holly.
Love you,
You've heard
Holly.
it then. And we love you, Holly. Now, Holly will have to run soon. I don't know if she will or not. Oh, she might have to run. But Holly's a mate. Oh, you got 5 minutes. Awesome. 5 minutes. So let's bounce over to amazing Karen. Karen, again, so good seeing you in Brisbane on Friday. How are you? Please tell us what you're thinking, and love to hear your deep dive and reactions.
Hi, Ed. Hi, everyone. Yeah, it was lovely to see you too, and you, Holly. Holly, first of all, you're an amazing woman. For your age, you're so wise. And so I love what you've just said, all of it. I agree with you 100%, and Simone and Sarah as well. I want to bring up a couple of distinctions, though. There's being vulnerable. In other words, we feel vulnerable when things happen. And that's always there. We're all going to be vulnerable because of things that have happened, shall we say, to us. And there's a difference between feeling vulnerable but putting on that brave face, right? Which is what society really quite often teaches us to do. And I think the sex thing, Edward, or the gender, I should say, definitely, I've seen parents actually, a child will fall over, and if it's a little boy, they'll say, especially guys do it, come on, mate, you're okay. And yet if it's a little girl, they'll go, oh, darling, and pick her up. And I think that's a part of it. That's the start of how we teach guys that it's not okay to show how we feel, and girls to be a little bit more vulnerable. So there's a real difference, though, between sharing that. So yes, we will feel more, we will encounter that vulnerability feeling the bigger steps we take, the more challenges that we overcome, or the more we put ourselves out there, we're definitely going to create situations where we may feel vulnerable. And so when we share that, like you say, I really think that's showing some real genuine integrity about who we are, and it connects us to people, definitely other people, to show, well, actually this happened to me and this is how I felt. And other people, we're all going to encounter those situations. And when you say it, people go, oh, wow, I'm not the only one. And I can actually talk about that. And so, or, it's okay for me to feel like that. And so there's that. And then there's also, I think, the line between being vulnerable and being a victim. Ooh. Nobody likes a victim. And so, you know, it's okay to say, yes, I'm vulnerable. However, we want to say it in a way that is, I'm vulnerable, I've been vulnerable, and perhaps I've moved forward, or I've gained something, or I've grown from it. But when you're still in victim mode, I don't think that's healthy at all, and it's not helpful for
So
other
just
people.
on that, and you brought up the V word, which was in the back of my mind too. And I think this is important. So a lot of people will be sitting here thinking this through. What is the distinction between vulnerability and victimhood? Because I think there's definitely a blur in that understanding. And can you unpack that for us, Karen? Because you're the one who brought it up, which is very
Great
intelligent.
question, Ed. I'm glad you asked us. Well, vulnerability is like, okay, so something happened in my life, and this is how I felt it affected me in a particular way. And then staying in that I'm in a bad way without being empowered to learn from it and move forward is victimhood. So if you're like, this happened to me and this is why I'm not achieving, or this is why I'm not successful, or, you know, my parents had a divorce when I was 3, and this is why I can never have a good relationship. So it's when we hang on to something that happened to us and we don't grow from it, and we use it as an excuse not to achieve, or not to move forward, or not to attain something. That's when we're in victimhood.
Wow, brilliant. Well said. Can we get up for Karen? Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Master Coach Sonia is just, she's in between an interesting few meetings, so she's just moving to a new location. So let's bounce back to Sarah Polyakov. Sarah, great seeing you as always. Please, what do you think of what you've heard, and can you dive deeper into vulnerability?
Okay, I absolutely love what I have heard. And can you give me a more specific question, if you don't mind?
I'd love you to really explore the arc where Karen, Simone, and Holly was taking it in terms of, you know, how vulnerability is a strength and how it's often not seen as a strength. I'd like you to explore that arc a bit more, Sarah.
It is absolutely a strength because it builds relationships with others. It allows you to find your tribe, because if you're able to be vulnerable with a new person and they receive that and you actually feel and see, that helps you find your tribe. Vulnerability is very much linked to authenticity. For when we are truly vulnerable, we don't have anything to hide. We're saying, hey, this is who I am. I'm not perfect, but it's okay. I'm not perfect. So that's part of being vulnerable. And I think that it does take courage and inner strength to be truly vulnerable, because some fear that they will be judged if they're vulnerable. And to bring this idea back to how girls are raised and how boys are raised, when somebody falls down at the playground, it's in America, if a little boy falls down, it's, hey, you need to man up. If a little girl falls down, it's, poor dear, let me put a bandage on your boo-boo. I'm a mother of 2 sons, and when I found out that I was pregnant with my 2th son, I intentionally decided that I would not raise my son that way. In fact, I read a book called Raising Cain, and I read some books on attachment parenting, and I learned that little boys actually have, they feel more deeply than little girls. That's what some of the research showed. And so I never have ever said to either of my sons, you need to get over it, you need to be strong, you need to do that. We really talk about it, we process our feelings together. I say, can you find words for what you're feeling? And there's no shame, there's no blame, there's no, hey, you need to do this because you're a guy. It's, no, you're a very valuable human being. That's who you are. And that, I've gone off on a tangent there, but
No, brilliant, Sarah. Love it. I just want to go through a few reactions. My old friend Yolande, good seeing you again, says, yes, Sarah, very well said. We got Faisy Greaves watching us saying, hi, Karen. And Ed, good morning. Sorry I couldn't answer you before, Faisy. I know you're there. And Yolan makes a good point. Being victim is blame mode. I couldn't agree with that one more. And Elizabeth, her makes a good point. We can measure how brave you are by how vulnerable you're willing to be. I love it. Now, I just want to ask you that one before we bounce over to the amazing Master Coach Sonia. I think Master Coach Sonia's in a good spot. So we'll hear this reaction from you first, Sarah. Blaming people. I've been notorious for blaming people for all my problems in my life, which obviously is not the most smartest thing to do. Can you react? Can you give us a bit of commentary on the blame topic before we bounce over to Master Coach Sonia?
Okay, so it's actually very easy to blame others because then an individual is not required to look within. However, let me make something very clear. There are situations where somebody truly is a victim. For example, if somebody's been raped, they are a victim of rape, and we can't overlook that, right? We need to support that person. We need to give them the resources. We need to wrap them up in love and really show them the path forward. And then there's the person who just relies on, well, I failed my exam because my parents didn't help me with my homework. Then there's that person. So I just wanted to make that distinction.
Oh, brilliant. We love it. Can we give a round of applause to Sarah? Sarah, just amazing. I love Master Coach Sonia. Master Coach Sonia is like running through a city. It's really cool. It's like a TV show. Master Coach Sonia, are you ready to say a quick hello with all the cool stuff that you're doing right now?
Hey, everybody. I don't know if you can hear me. There's a little bit of music in the background. I hope it's not too terribly bad. I've been in the convention center, the parking garage, my car, and now I'm in a restaurant. So I hope this all works. But it's great to see everybody. And what was your question?
I was just going to say, now we've got you in the same spot until like you jump in a helicopter or, you know, fly at 10,000 feet. Till you do that. Just love to hear your thoughts and reactions on vulnerability, victimhood. Just love to hear what you're thinking, Sonia. Please share it with the world.
I think that what's been discussed so far, I've heard bits and pieces, but vulnerability can definitely be turned into a strength. You could use it to help others by you can use it to help others see that, you know, you're not superhuman, and that, you know, they can also use their own vulnerability to master what or overcome their challenge or obstacle that they're having. And, you know, I know in my own life that I've had many times where I've had to overcome vulnerability, and it was really challenging, and you just have to focus on what you can control and then let go what you can't control, because that's, you know, for another day.
It's funny, we've had this conversation before, I suppose, off camera, Sonia, is there's this part of me which I disagree with, but it is honestly there, that sees vulnerability as a weakness, right? Honestly, part of me does see it as a weakness. I don't like it, but that's just part of this weird, say, emotional blockage I have. What's your reaction to the whole vulnerability is a weakness type of thinking?
Well, there is that that out there. A lot of people think you know, if you're emotional, you're weak. If you have times where you can't stand strong, and others think that you're weak because of that, or if you won't, if you're in a situation where you're put with your back to the wall, that's a sign of your true character, how you come out of that, and your vulnerability may be what's pushing you through that. And so, no, that's not a weakness. You know, but I do see where a lot of people think it's a weakness because maybe they just don't know how to own it.
Wow, brilliant. Love your work, Sonia. Can we give it up for Sonia? Sonia, I can't wait till I see you climb a wall after this. Or is it that parkour? Is it that parkour where you jump across a building and roll. I can see you doing that. So, I love you,
Well,
Sonia. Pleasure.
I'll let you
Actually, I want to
too.
bounce over to the amazing Simone Lord. And Simone, what are your thoughts and reactions to everything you've heard? And can you dive a bit deeper into the vulnerability strength topic?
Yeah, sure. I love what's been said so far and agree on so many levels. For me, I'm an 80s kid and I grew up with a very big saying that was harden up and eat some concrete. That was often things said to boys and to men, is that they weren't allowed to show that emotional side. For me as well, you know, I'm a mum of 3 boys, and it's definitely important for me to raise children, regardless of their gender, to raise children that are okay with being vulnerable and having open and honest communication about those sorts of things. So, and I think from a female perspective as well, I am the only female in my house, and it is showing that vulnerability and not feeling like I can't, that I've always got to be such a strong role model, which I love. And I can totally resonate with you, Ed, on certain parts where I just don't want to dig into that vulnerability. And I know it's a blockage and I know I've got to work through that. You know, and a lot of the time that can be our ego coming into play as well, that we just don't want to dive into the things that we know we need to.
Just on that note, though, and I'm not defending our limitations because we're wrong, but having said that, isn't it the case, though, Simone, that sometimes when we express our vulnerability to the wrong person, they'll take advantage of us? Isn't that a real thing?
I believe so, yeah. I think you definitely need to open up certain stages and phases of your vulnerability into the right arena. And this again can come back to what Karen was saying about the victim mentality as well. And some people, I've seen it happen before, they use their vulnerability as a dependency almost, that it's just what they do to get that attention, and they have no intention of actually moving through that. They just want someone to give them the, oh, poor you, I'm sorry that happened. But instead of moving them through that, they use that as this continual stage that they just sit into.
So in other words, I think if I can paraphrase this, and Faisy just made a great comment, it's a self-projection, and a great comment from Yolande. It's old conditioning passed down from through generations. It's now being seen as a strength, which is good. Another quick reaction from Faisy. I have a son, and yes, Sarah, they're just as emotional as girls. I'm a very emotional guy, so I agree with that. I gave him a lot of hugs, and now he's passed that on to his son, which is very good. Now, one thing I want to say, Simone, before we bounce over to the amazing Karen for her thoughts on this one, right? I just want to ask you this one. You know, you get people, and I think there may be toxic people. I think toxic people use fake vulnerability as a means of manipulation. Is that kind of what you're saying? What do you think of that statement, Simone?
Yeah, I think you see it a lot in the coaching space as well, is that we love to help people. We love to offer our help and support, but it's very important to recognize when someone is being vulnerable in a way of just seeking out attention and not in a way that's actually helping them through that into the next stage or phase. So when they're in this repetitive cycle of going through the same level of vulnerability, they're either not doing the work to move beyond that, or their intention of why they're being vulnerable is somewhat maybe taken advantage of.
Wow, well said. Simone, absolutely brilliant. I want to bounce over to Karen. And Karen, I'd just love to get your thoughts on this one. Can you continue the deep dive?
Wow, so much, so much. So just on what you said, first of all, I always go back to the last person first, Simone, is that, yeah, I think really we're talking about being vulnerable at times and sharing how we can be or have been vulnerable at times. It's a mindset, it's an emotion, and it's a mindset. And we're not saying that we're going to be vulnerable all the time. So when we share, we're saying we can share to people, yes, I was vulnerable at this time in my life or when this happened. However, no one wants to go around being vulnerable all the time. And so it is a thing that we can control. So when we, if I'm like, I'm feeling vulnerable about this, then I'll ask myself, well, why? What is it that's going on for me that's making me feel vulnerable? And then we can move through that. We can never not feel it because we're humans, just like we feel fear and we feel the other negative emotions. However, it's really important to understand, like you said, Ed, that we can be responsible for our feelings and our emotions and our thoughts, or we can be a victim and say, well, even though I was, now, please don't take offense to this, anybody. However, because I know Michelle Slight, who's a coach in this area, even though someone was raped when they were maybe 10 years ago, they don't have to still be vulnerable about that. That's a choice. That they don't have to allow it, to affect their lives in a negative way. That is a choice, and there's work that can be done on anything that has caused us to feel vulnerable, to allow us to take responsibility for whatever happens in the future by working on ourselves to do that, to overcome it. So you talked about responsibility, you talked about weaknesses. Vulnerability is not a weakness. It is a feeling or a negative emotion that we will have at a particular time, and it's what we do with it as to whether it's a weakness or not. So yes, some people use it as a crutch, Simone, which is what you alluded to, and they stay in that victim mode, and that's what I was referring to. Whatever happens to us in the past, we can either choose for it to propel us forward and learn from it and grow, or we can choose to say, well, that's a reason why, and use it as a crutch. So yeah, that's my response to everything so far, or what I could remember, because there's so much good information from you all.
Oh, brilliant. And just a quick one on that one. A very quick, funny story from my part. I once ran an event and I took vulnerability too far in a very comedic way. What I did was I got up in front of it. We were talking about empowerment and a bit of LinkedIn. And I got up at in this event that I was running in front of 60 people. And I said, I'm the biggest loser in this room. No one has made more mistakes in life than me. And no one's a bigger failure than I am. Now, most of the room was laughing their heads off when I played that vulnerability. A few people got really angry. Interestingly enough, it bounced back to I think what Simone, Sarah, and Sonia was saying. But a few people got really angry because they're like, "Hang on, Ed. No, I'm more of a fail than you." And I'd be, "No, I'm a loser. You're a winner." So I had this reverse fight. It's like it's not it's like the worst person wins, right? We're like, who can be the ultimate victim? And I thought about it because without realizing it, I was actually attacking people's victim narrative, wasn't I, Karen? Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, especially, well, yeah, and it brought up those people who were still in victim mode, didn't it? And said, no, I've got more reason to be a victim than you have, right? It's like, no, nothing's happened to you that's that bad. My life has been way worse than you, and it's like almost like competition to prove that, I've got more reason to be a victim than you have. And once again, it's a mindset. And so I think, the thing that's important to teach our children and our clients is that we have the responsibility, taking responsibility, about how we feel and what we do, and how we can actually empower ourselves by going through a process, feeling vulnerable, learning from it, learning what we learn by challenges and anything in our lives, and then choosing for it to grow us rather than stop us.
Oh, brilliant. Well said. We love you, Karen. Amazing. We're going to bounce over to Master Coach Sonia, then bounce back to legendary Sarah. So, Sonia, I thought while we've got you, love to hear your thoughts, Sonia. Please tell us what you think about vulnerability, victimhood, and everything. Unmute and let us know what you think, Sonia.
I'd like to piggyback on what Karen said, that when you have been a victim of something in your life, that you have to know that you're just a human being, and that if you get up and try your best every single day and you still feel that little vulnerable, working on yourself, finding out, like like Karen says, finding out why you have these vulnerabilities, why you feel this way. Is there something in your environment that's upsetting you? Is there something that maybe you could change in your life so you're not vulnerable? And Ed, you said something about toxic work environment, and people or employees are vulnerable all the time because they never know from day to day how they may be treated, or how their boss might get act toward them. And I have a client that's in Johannesburg, and I was talking to her yesterday, and she just got a new job. She's been promoted. She's really excited, but her boss is really toxic, and finding every way she can to put her down or keep her in a box. And so she feels like it's taking her back to her childhood when she did have vulnerable moments where she was not treated well, and so it's making her have flashbacks. And I told her that they can never take away who you are. And when you are um, you go to work every day and you give it your best, and you do everything that you're supposed to do in your job, but you strive to be excellent or in the spirit of excellence every day. No matter who's around you, you can go ahead, you can go home at night and lay your head down because you faced your vulnerability and or your victimhood, and you didn't let someone or something take control of your mind, your heart, your spirit, because you have to walk in those shoes, and they are only around you temporarily. If we look at the whole life, they're only one part of it. So don't let that one part ruin everything else. So I think with the and then the other aspect with the relationships, and you can easily be a victim in a relationship and not know it because you're maybe so dependent on that other partner in your relationship that you don't realize what they're doing to you, and you just take it as normal. And then you wake up one day and it's like, your body shuts down. It's like, I can't do this anymore. And you realize this is not normal. And in the vulnerability, that feeling is where you have your power to speak up and say, I want to be happy. I want to be me and happily be me. And so, I think that um, vulnerability or victimhood, that there are choices that we can make to empower ourselves to be stronger every be stronger every day that we can and give it our best.
And I love one thing that you brought up as well, and you didn't say it, but I'll throw it in there. I suppose the word no is saying no, the ultimate form of vulnerability, because when you say no, people are going to push back on you. What are your thoughts on the word no, Sonia?
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you say no, you're taking a stand, and you're telling them, you're communicating with the words in your body that enough's enough. You're not going to do this anymore. And this made me think of this parenting. A lot of us are on here are moms and fathers, and as parents, how many times do we tell our children not to do something and they do it anyway? And then we might get upset with them because they keep doing it. And then finally, they're testing our limits to the point where we almost yell at them. It's like, okay, I told you to stop. And then you start counting at 1, 2. When you get to 5, they're sitting down, they're doing what they're supposed to do. But as a parent, you're vulnerable, and a lot of times because you want to protect your child, but then if you have to stand up to someone, say at the school, and it's not a popular choice that you're making, but you're doing it because you love your child and you're doing what's right for them and protecting them. And so I kind of go around the world and back.
Well said, Sonia. Very good. Round of applause to Sonia. And before we bounce over to Sarah, I know we're all thinking this. That looks amazing what you're eating. What is it? I know everyone's thinking this. Tell us what you're eating because I'm hungry now.
It's a kale strawberry salad with Gouda, bacon bits, vinaigrette dressing, and kale with strawberries.
Oh, God. And I suppose Simone's a healthy lady. Simone, do you approve of that meal choice as a high protein, low fat choice?
Low fat, definitely. I'm not sure if there's enough protein. They probably could do with some chicken or something in there too, Sonia.
Yeah, that would probably be good to have some chicken. I'd love that.
There you go.
You're
So
so
please,
funny.
bon appetit, Sonia. Thank you. We're going to hear from amazing Sarah Polyakov, who has been sitting there with patient and brilliant contemplation. Haven't you, Sarah?
I guess.
Oh, what are your thoughts and reactions?
I love listening to everybody because everybody is so very wise. You are. What can I say? You're so very wise. And I very much appreciate that.
And what are your thoughts, Sarah? A few great concepts have come up. One concept is victimhood and the word no and boundaries. I know you're a real pro on this topic. What are some of your thoughts on victimhood and the word no and setting boundaries, Sarah?
Okay. Oh boy, oh boy. I could write a book about this. Victimhood is a very sad way to live because you're really stopping your own growth. You're almost poisoning yourself when you're in a victim mode, and you don't want to leave that mode because it's comfortable for you. When you're comfortable being a victim, you really do stunt your growth. You stop any forward progress in your life, and the person that you're hurting the most is yourself. And that's really sad. And so I do have compassion for that. And I would hope that anybody who wants to compete about who's the bigger victim, I would hope that one day they could all have insight and say, how can I change this? How can I look within? How can I excel? How can I actually get what I want in life instead of sitting here and telling myself, I can't have this because somebody did this long ago. This person did that. This other person's doing this, and all my dreams are shattered. That's not true. That's actually not true. Yet so many people are stuck in that mindset. And it stunts their growth, and that's very sad. And so I have tremendous compassion for those individuals. So, the word no. The word no can be a positive thing. And it depends on context, once again. The word no should be used carefully in my mind, because some people can take it. Their feelings can be hurt by the word no. And so it's something that I use thoughtfully, and I always have. The word no, though, is essential when it comes to boundaries. If somebody is doing something that violates you constantly, every interaction that you have with them, let's say that they're very negative every time and they shame you and they say, you should do this, you should do that. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? And they just shame you every time you see them. You have to say, no, actually, none of that is true about me. Or you can say, no, I really don't want to go out to lunch. Because every time we do go out to lunch, you tell me what's wrong with me, and I'm no longer comfortable with that. I'm doing my own inner work, and I'm no longer comfortable with that. But if you're open to having an equal relationship where we build each other up, I'm absolutely open to that. But we can't continue in this dynamic where it's you should be this, you should be that. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Because it's an unhealthy dynamic for both people that are caught in it.
Wow, brilliant. Well said. Can we give it to Sarah? Sarah, amazing. And just in case if you're hearing snoring, that's Sarah's cute little pooch snoring off camera.
Well,
Oh, yes, I heard it. I thought it was a dog. Is it a dog?
yeah, that's Barkley. That's
Barkley. That's a brilliant name, Barkley.
two of them, and they follow. They're glued to me. I'm the only woman in the house. I've got sons and a husband and male dogs, and the male dogs are glued to me. Literally, they're adorable.
So you're like poor Simone. You're the only female outnumbered by dudes everywhere.
Yeah, and it's okay. Right? It's okay. Such loving. My sons are so loving. And I've taught them that love is a strength. Being loving and kind is actually one of the biggest strengths that you can bring to the world. And my sons are just two of the most loving people that I know. And I love that about them.
Brilliant, Sarah. Round of applause to Sarah. And I'll go through some reactions, then we'll bounce over to Karen and Simone, and then we'll go to closing thoughts. And if you're around, Sonia, we'd love to hear your closing thought too. So Elizabeth Hur makes a good point, and she's having a great chat. I think no is not used often enough. I agree with that statement. Yolan says, referring to the story, I wonder what that was. I probably should have asked that question earlier. I just, there you go. But it's that deep sort of dog snoring. I probably sound like that when I snore. You're going to have to ask Lassie that one. And Faisy says, no, it's not a rejection. It is. No, not now. Not at this time. And that type of thing. Faisy's, there's Barkley. I love that. What a great name, Barkley. It's like an insurance company / dog.
Oh.
There you go.
The breeder, the breeder named him that. He knew his name. And so I didn't change it since he already knew his name.
Wow.
I think there's a Barclays Bank in England.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Barclays. I really thought Barclays, the insurance company and bank, when you said that. So there you go.
This is hi. How are you?
Barclays.
Oh, I love you.
All right.
Oh, I love you. Oh.
So let's hear from Simone and then Karen, and we wrap things up. Simone, what are your thoughts? Tell us what you're thinking and deep dive on anything that resonates with you, Simone.
I love what Elizabeth said in the comments that no is not used often enough. And I think that's something that I can definitely reflect on personally myself. As a busy mum, as a woman, I just sometimes find it difficult to say no because I just want to be able to do everything all the time. And there comes a point where you just have to say, no, I can't do that. And that is showing vulnerability in doing that, and also setting in those boundaries for yourself and loving yourself enough to go, you know what, I don't need to do everything for everyone all the time. It is okay to say no. It's important to say no. And it's also showing that vulnerability of just saying, you know what, I've got enough on my plate. I can't do that. And for myself personally, I'm very careful not to say I'm sorry, because it's nothing to be sorry about as well. So no doesn't always have to be aligned with no, sorry, I can't. It is just a no. And you don't always have to share an explanation for that as well.
I love that. I was thinking that actually years ago, I did a program called Landmark Forum, which was very, very fascinating. A very highly criticized program too. And you actually do this exercise that I think you'd love, Simone, where you're actually taught to answer questions with a no and no justification required. And just on that point, right, there's this thing where you have to say no and justify. I love how you're seeking to say no without justification. What are your thoughts on that, Simone?
Yeah, I think it's a tool that you need to use, because we've always, well, I know I certainly grew up where you had to explain what your reason was and why. And I think it's just a matter of shifting your mindset, like Karen's talked about earlier as well. It is being aware of what you're saying and how you're saying it. Displaying vulnerability when you need to, and other times there's not. That's just how you want to express and end a conversation.
Oh, brilliant. Simone, amazing as always. Karen, what do you think, legendary Karen Clark?
Wow, well, saying no in the context of bringing up children is another whole conversation. It makes me think of my mum was quite a strong person, and they had their rules or whatever, and she just say no. And I notice now that parents explain to their children why they've made a decision about something often, and the kids will go backwards and forwards, and the parents will keep coming back, almost like a negotiation process. Well, there's nothing wrong with teaching your children to negotiate. However, little children, I personally believe that little children, you want to give them the boundaries that are the boundaries that are your family boundaries, and teach them that because you're the parent and they're the child, you don't have to explain. So I agree that even to children, no without an explanation is actually giving them some sense of security, and that, well, my mum or dad would say no, and that's it. And I think personally, in other situations as well, saying no, I'm not doing that, because making a choice around what you say yes to and what you say no to. And I mean, Dr. Liz yesterday, Ed, was talking exactly about that, and how, I'm sure she won't mind us sharing that, how she couldn't say no to people, and she got to the point where her own health and well-being suffered. And so that's the thing, is that we as people, especially the type of people who help others in their have a purpose to help others, often want to do so much for everybody that we forget ourselves and our own, prioritizing our own health and well-being first. And so it's a big lesson for us to come back to and say, okay, what's my purpose here? What am I doing? Can I say yes or no to this request? And so I believe that no is not a weakness, it's actually a strength. And having the confidence to say no to anything, whether it's a little child and that's against however you're bringing up your child, or whether it's in a work situation like Sonia talked about, where that woman has come into a new job and her boss is bullying her. And that's a big thing to be able to do, is to actually step in and say, the way that you're treating me, I'm not comfortable, and I'm not prepared to accept it. And that, in a way, is saying no. It's a boundary. And so boundaries are really important too, setting up boundaries, our own personal boundaries, and then our boundaries with other people. So, a lot of wonderful, wonderful insights from everybody.
Oh, brilliant. Love it. Round of applause to you, Karen. And we've got Master Coach Sonia with us after enjoying a fine, healthy meal. I need to take a leaf out of Master Coach Sonia's book. Master Coach Sonia, what are some of your thoughts and reactions?
This has been awesome. It made me think of one of my favorite movies, Wizard of Oz. Think about Dorothy. When she went to Oz, she was very vulnerable because she didn't know anybody. She was trying to find a way to get back home. She was being, threatened by the witch, when the witch wrote in the sky, surrender, Dorothy. And, she didn't let her vulnerability stop her from reaching her destination.
Yeah.
And then she met these people, the Scarecrow, the Cowardly Lion, the Tin Man, Glinda, the Good Witch, the Munchkins, all these characters that were along the way that she was able to form a bond with, that helped her overcome her vulnerability because she was thinking about them and how she could help them and help them get their brain, help them get their heart or courage. And so, I think that movie really symbolizes what we're talking about because every step of the way she was vulnerable, but she found her way home, and so I think that all of us, when we face, things in our life that may make us feel vulnerable, we just need to follow the yellow brick road.
Oh, well said. Love you, Sonia. Round of applause and amazing. Now, what we're going to do is we've got about 5 minutes left, so we're going to move into closing thoughts and wrap things up. And closing thoughts is pretty much good half a minute to 1 minute max, just a closing thought from all our panelists. So I just want to say, if you've been watching now, big thank you. Please smash that like, share, and comment big time. If you are watching the recording, hit that like, share, and comment as well. And please connect with our wonderful panelists and tell them how wonderful they are. And thank you for being such a great audience. So now we're going to wrap things up. We'll follow the screen. We'll go Sarah, Simone, Karen, then Master Coach Sonia for the closing thoughts. And we'll wrap it up there and just want to say a big thank you. And stay tuned for our next Boss Lady Summit as well. Sarah, thank you so much. What are your closing thoughts?
Well, thank you for actually having this session and bringing up this very important topic, because we have learned so many important ideas from all the panelists. And I think that these ideas that people have shared, I will certainly take some away, and I will use them for growth. And I hope that everybody who's watching can also take some of these ideas, assimilate them, and use these ideas for their own inner growth. And so I very much appreciate what everybody has shared today. You all are rock stars, so thank you.
Sarah, it takes a rock star to know one. Round of applause to Sarah. You heard it. Sarah Polyakov, amazing Labour Heart of Gold. Find her on LinkedIn and connect with her. Sarah, we love you.
Thank you.
Simone Lord, what are your closing thoughts, and thank you for your amazing contributions?
Thanks, Ed. My closing thoughts would be that vulnerability is your strength and it is your superpower. And if you don't know how to be vulnerable, dive into that and seek out someone to help you with that, because not only will it propel you from a personal level on how you show up each day, but professionally as well. It will change everything for you, just working through those steps. So finding the right person to work with to help you unravel that vulnerability, and it's different people at different stages. So you might find someone that can help you on a spiritual level with your vulnerability personally, and then you might like someone who's more in a business mindset to help your vulnerability as well develop into that personal sense. So it's a massive area to unravel and look into, and one that I would highly encourage you to look into. If you're finding it very difficult to show vulnerability, you need to dig into that, because there's so much growth behind that. That's my closing thought.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate you, Simone Lord. And you heard it, friends. Please connect with Simone Lord on LinkedIn. I love your work. And then Karen Clark. Karen Clark, big thank you for your amazing insights and deep dives. What are your closing thoughts?
Well, I love what both you girls have said. You've amazing insights from all of you, actually, including you, Sonia. Acknowledging vulnerability is important. Knowing when you're there, being able to acknowledge it to yourself and to other people, like you say. Acknowledging it to other people is helpful, and to yourself really helps you to grow and move forward. So it allows us to achieve our goals and our big dreams. Absolutely. It's a stage, it's a part of the process. However, we don't want to always be vulnerable and stay in that mode. It's about using it to propel us forward.
Beautiful. Karen Clark, well said. Round of applause, and everyone, please connect with Karen Clark. Big thank you. And the closing thought goes to Master Coach Sonia, who has great culinary dining tastes as well as deep insights.
Well, thank you, everybody. This has been so awesome just to hear your perspectives on this. And what I was thinking is, vulnerability, ask for help. If you feel like you're in a spot where you are feeling vulnerable and you're not sure what steps to take, many of us on here are coaches, and we know what it's like to help walk people through, shifting their mindset or helping them in their life or their career or their health. And, you don't have to do this by yourself. Working with someone to help you through the vulnerability is going to help you get to your goals faster. And then the other thing that I would say is surround yourself with positive people who can help you embrace you when you do feel vulnerable. So that way, if you're having a bad day, you've got someone that you could reach out to help you through that day.
Yeah. So
Thank you, Master Coach Sonia. You're amazing. So I just want to say that brings us to the end of our Boss Lady Summit. Thank you for coming. Smash that like, share, and comment, and also make sure you connect with wonderful Lassie who actually created the concept. So, friends, thank you to our panelists. Let's finish with a thunderous round of applause. And thank you, everyone. Great job, all. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.